All right, let's talk Metal Gear.
Metal Gear.
Metal Gear. This is a very, very interesting story to me. This broke, of course, just after last week's podcast. So it's karmic trade-off. We got this Halo thing that just broke we're going to talk about, but we just missed all this Kojima stuff. So if you missed it, GameSpot, credit to them. They dug this up. Source confirmed to GameSpot. So I guess we can't officially say this is real because it's not like
nothing's official
announced.
here.
Yeah,
This is all very big speculation.
For the purposes of this conversation, we're going to go ahead and go with the premise that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
But just the caveat is it's not officially real. So according to GameSpot source, Hideo Kojima and his team are out at Konami after Metal Gear Solid 5 amid some serious headbutting with management at Konami. Now, Max, you're a big Metal Gear guy.
Yes.
I'm very curious to hear what you think. I have some distinct opinions on this as someone who's just indifferent to Metal Gear. I don't dislike it. I don't like it. But yeah, you talk to me.
First things first. I think it's really worth pointing out something that's kind of just not really addressed directly in the States, and that's the fact that Konami does a lot of other stuff besides video games in Japan. They make exercise equipment. They make bottled water. They make karaoke machines. They make like pachinko machines. And I mean, they make bottled water. Like that's weird to me.
That's pretty.
Over
weird.
here, they make video games. That's it. You know, they might make a few that are like kind of bigger hits, but it's over there. It's much more of like, I mean, there's not even a corresponding company that I can think of.
We only know Konami as a video game company.
Precisely. So in that sense, it can seem a little bit baffling that like, why would they do that? That's their big thing. And the thing is, Kojima spends a lot of money on his games. He puts a lot of money in his games, and he takes a long time to make his games. And they're not accessible, really. They're difficult games to get into. Mm-hmm. And Kojima's also very much an auteur. Like, he wants to be pushing the medium so much further, but, on the scale he does it, that costs a ton of money.
Yeah.
I think I'm really curious to see what the Phantom Pain is like, because I think that it could be... I think it's going to be technically incredibly sound, but it could be an absolute, complete clusterfunk of a thing. Pardon my French.
Hold on, I'm going to hit the beeper on you here. Hit the button.
But yeah, I mean, it's Metal Gear Solid is like it's a 25-year like sprawling epic of intertwining plot twists and stuff that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And Kojima's really, really committed to it, in spite of the fact that he's always been like, this is my last Metal Gear game. This is my last Metal Gear game. He's been saying that since 2.
That's true.
2 ended on a cliffhanger, and he didn't really want to address it. And then he did 3, which was sort of a weird prequel, but it seemed almost like it wanted to be its own game. And then 4 was trying to tie up the loose ends of 2, and it didn't really do that. And then Peace Walker was a game that a lot of people really liked. And,
so do you think that with kind of this kerfluffle happening and him... We released a video on IGN like the beginning of last month or earlier this month where he was like, Metal Gear Solid 5 is definitely my last Metal Gear game, at least for me. The franchise may continue and stuff. He said that before, is just your point, but like, do you think it's any more or less solidified now that there's kind of like this anticipation of him being out?
The kind of haunting realization is that this doesn't seem far-fetched in one bit.
Like here's the other thing is like, do you think... Let's say he still does want to make Metal Gear in the future. Can he do a Metal Gear game elsewhere?
No, Konami owns it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you, Max. I actually think that if he wants to go make video games, and this is nothing. I don't know him personally. I've never met him.
Yeah.
But just based on what you're saying, which I agree with, about his games have become more and more insular as time has gone on. They're not. You can't jump into Metal Gear 4 and have any clue what's going on.
I jumped into Ground Zeroes and I didn't know what was going on because I didn't play Peace Walker, because that's like I didn't play the Vita installation, or the PSP version.
And the fact that his games, have taken longer and longer every time, costing more and more money every time. I think he's going to have a hard time finding a studio to give him money to bankroll something after this than you might initially assume. Because, if let's say, just for the sake of this podcast, Microsoft, like, oh man, Hideo Kojima's a free agent. I'm Phil Spencer. Should I pick up the phone immediately? Like, well, wait a minute. I mean, this guy's going to maybe get me some PR, but his record says it's going to cost me $100 million to make his game, and it's maybe going to sell me, a few million units.
Right.
That's a tougher sell, I think. I mean, I looked it up to back you up here, Max. Metal Gear 2 was the peak of the series sales-wise, 7 million units. That's excellent, especially back in 2001, 2002 or so.
And that was a PlayStation exclusive at the time.
Yeah, PlayStation 2. And but let's see, their fiscal sales were down. The company, Konami, was down 37% last fiscal year. And Metal Gear, so
37%.
we went from 7 million with Metal
That's
Gear
crazy.
2 to 3.6 million. So about half of that for Metal Gear Solid 3, same console, PS2. Twin Snakes, which was
That was a GameCube exclusive that was retelling the first Metal Gear Solid, but that was actually developed by Silicon Knights. That was kind of a separate thing. So that was
before Silicon Knights really fell onto some hard times. That game bombed, did a million. Metal Gear Solid 4, which is of course PlayStation 3, that was the last big hurrah for the series since we got 5 coming up, but 4.3 million sold. So not bad, but a far cry from
Also, that
peak.
game, I've heard some weird kind of rumors about what went into that game, and that there was a lot of kind of just Kojima really kind of throwing his weight around in terms of what he wanted to make happen, and the fact that the length of that game was in development was kind of staggering.
It was hold on, I have it written here. I believe it was almost 7 years.
Yeah.
I believe. I thought I had it written. I'm pretty sure it was about 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was real. I think they were really just getting under the hood of the PS3 and being like, let's see how much we can do with that, because yeah.
I mean, and I wonder if Konami will, because you got to wonder, like, Konami, Kojima's the only superstar they have. They've let Castlevania go. Silent Hill is a B-tier franchise. I know they announced Silent Hills, which, by the way, that game's probably, if you ask me, doomed. Kojima was supposed to be working on that game.
Right. Kojima and Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah. By the way, who's more snake-bitten in the video game world than Guillermo del Toro? He hooks up with THQ and Volition on the Insane trilogy, which never gets off the ground because THQ goes under.
I mean, I think that he hooks up with people who throw Hollywood amounts of money at him.
Yeah.
And say that, you can do that, and then that's not exactly sustainable.
It's not reality. But then, so you've got, and then they bought Hudson, but they haven't done anything with, say, Bomberman or some of the other great Hudson IPs. I wonder if Konami will, in the next few years, fade out of the video game business.
Would not surprise me one bit, because, I mean, I think that, I think that it's sort of like, they're almost like, they've got executives who are in other areas of commerce. They make different things. Maybe in video games are a thing that people don't really understand in terms of how they operate business-wise. Like, there's no exact science yet. It's always kind of like, let's try to do Call of Duty, try to do Minecraft. There's always that kind of trying to be something else. And even the coolest idea can be a total flop, or it's entertainment crossed with software.
Right.
That's a mess right there. I wonder if Kojima's just sort of like the kid with the babysitter, and he's like, yeah, mom always lets me stay up till midnight. They're like, really? Are you sure? And it's like, yeah, everyone else does it. For real, it's okay. And it's like, you're gonna spend 7 years developing this console exclusive that's about an old man smoking cigars, like
old man, look at my life.
And I mean, I know that one thing that happened was everyone got really mad because Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain, Metal Gear Solid 5 was broken into 2 pieces.
Yes.
And everyone got really mad about that. And
$20 demo.
Kojima was sort of like, well, it's actually it's a prologue, and it's kind of part of the game, and so much backpedaling happened there.
Yeah.
Basically, they cut the price. That was originally going to be like a $30 or $40 game. They cut the price after the backlash, and then they were like, oh, it's part of the plan initially. And I remember Kojima chimed in and was like, actually, no, it wasn't. That was their idea. That was not a thing I wanted to do. And I mean, I think they were trying to break even, or trying to like kind of
mitigate the cost.
I mean, the reality is, like, the fact that video games are locked at $60 is kind of impressive that we managed to maintain that, because it's like sometimes you have something that's an absolute turd for $60, and other times you have something that should be, if they're actually trying to get their money back, this is something that should cost $150. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, I know it's probably an unpopular opinion, but yeah, I think Kojima will have a short list of suitors. Somebody's gonna. He's also
one of the biggest names in video games, and he could always do crowdfunding. that could be a horrible disaster. I'm not saying it's going to work out, but you could say Hideo Kojima launches a Kickstarter.
But if he raises $20 million, what is that going to last? That's like 3 months of development time for him.
I don't
What's
think
he going to make?
He'll make a really cool loading screen.
I think you could make, or Kojima could, like Kickstarter or crowdfund something, just because, like you pointed out, he's like a luminary, a visionary in this industry, and he has a huge, maybe not huge, but a very loyal and sizable, dedicated fan base who would support him. And I've been very dismissive of Kickstarters in the past. Like, I don't think. I'm kind of ambivalent to famous or successful people who could get behind closed doors meetings with suits kickstarting things, but like it's proven successful for a lot of people, like in other industries. Like we just saw the Con Men one with Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk. Like Spike Lee's done them, but you certainly wouldn't be able to ask for $20 million. I wasn't paying attention
to that. I thought that I kept seeing people referring to the Con Men, and I was like, people are really mad that they're kickstarting this. They're calling them Con Men.
Oh yeah, that's just the title.
Well, I'm dumb. I should click things.
Their tagline is Con Men because it sounds cooler than Convention Men. Which is kind of like the premise of the show. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even if
$20 is a huge price tag for a Kickstarter, and that would, like you pointed out, that would cost. That would be the cost of the titles.
The other big thing that we haven't talked about is the Fox engine, which is the engine that Kojima spearheaded to build. He's like, we need to be making modern games. Here's what we need. Here's a modern engine. Yeah.
That's say Konami's property now, I would
exactly.
assume.
Let's say they start licensing that out and farming it out, like Unreal or whatever else, Source. That could make them a ton of money. I mean, it could be that
Japanese. I feel like. I don't think Japanese engine licensing has really been much of a thing.
No, it hasn't. And I think that Kojima's been extremely, he's been very open to the West. He's kind of a weird, inverse otaku. He's like a Japanese dude who's obsessed with American culture.
Well, it's the other guy who was
such a good description of him.
What's his name was super successful with that. Kenji Inafune had a lot of success at Capcom with that sort of fusion of East and West.
Yeah. The other thing is, I mean, we're talking about would crowdfunding work? Would it would going to an actual investor work? I mean, let's say that Kojima goes around and knocks on the side door of somebody like Notch or Gabe Newell, who's like somebody else who's kind of out there and kind of gets it. But I don't know. I'm sure as hell curious. I'm curious about a few things right now. I'm curious, what happens with the Metal Gear franchise. I'm curious about how Metal Gear Solid 5 is. I want to play it. It looks cool.
Yeah.
And what happens next?
And I know there will probably be people that the game Metal Gear 5 will come out. It'll sell maybe a few million copies, and people will be like, "See, Ryan, it did great." But the problem is, then you're in a BioShock Infinite situation where BioShock Infinite sold huge, but its development budget was so enormous, the studio had to contract itself basically and fold down to effectively close itself. So it's his. I wonder if he just kind of got too far off the leash at some point, and Konami finally went, "Okay, this is just we can't do this anymore. We gotta part ways here."
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, time will tell. Metal Gear 5 will come out. It will be a Kojima game, but then they will apparently be going their separate ways if this GameSpot report is to be believed, which sure seems like that is the case from everything we've been reading.
Jeepers.
So.